Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Deleter deck profile for standard format 2019. This is the second deck from the Vilus Deleter booster pack that I wanted to deck profile for you all. I actually didn't intend to originally build Deletors, but after looking at more of the cards and what I picked up from Sneak Preview and from my booster box that I opened, I decided to build the deck. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I thought I'd bring you all my deck profile. I might work on some of the other Link Joker decks, depending on if I have any friends who complete the Sword Shield deck, which I think is the other variant that kind of strays away from Deleter, but I would say is a little more budget friendly than Deleters for sure for this booster pack. And I also want to work on a bunch of other decks as well, including Murakumo, Pale Moon, and Dark Irregulars, just waiting on friends to finish their deck profiles since they always assist me with those decks as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the grade 3s, one of our main grade 3s in the deck is Waving Deleter Greydol. Your opponent's rearguards cannot move to other rearguards, and when placed, you counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and bind it face down. If you rode from a grade 3, you delete your opponent's Vanguard, and this unit gets an extra critical until end of turn. So it's great pressure. I love the fact that it locks down your opponent's rearguards, not with the actual lock ability, but being able to prevent them from moving up and down. Changes their strategy quite greatly, just being able to have rear guards in the back row that can't move to the front row. They have to rely on calling additional cards from their hand if they want to make the column strong again, and also just being able to bind your opponent's rear guards and then also delete if you ride from a grade 3 is just an overall great offensive card, and comboed with force, being able to build up force markers on your Vanguard circle with that additional critical can hit for some pretty big pressure against your opponent as well. I only had the 3 here. For backup, I'm running 1 Penetrate Deleter Iggy from rearguard. It has an imaginary gift force marker, which is one of the reasons I decided to run this to fill in until I find the last Greydol. But it only has a rearguard effect. When it attacks a Vanguard, you retire one other rearguard in the same column as this unit, and this unit gets plus 4,000 until end of turn for each grade of the retired for this cost. If it got 8,000 or more, you choose one of your opponent's rearguards and bind it face down. So you have rearguard options with some of your grade 3s, which the other Greyon that we run, which we'll get to in just a second, doesn't have the same benefits compared to Iggy on rear. So even just as a small tech choice, I like running it in the deck as backup for Greydol. And then for the other grade 3, I run 4 Docking Deleter Greyon. Once again, just Vanguard abilities with this card. On Vanguard, you counterblast 2 and delete your opponent's Vanguard. It's not a one-place skill, which is very, very nice with Greyon. It's an act, so you can use it each turn. Just a little counterblast heavy, but other than that, that also has the auto. When it attacks a Vanguard, you soul blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it face down. So you have the option to bind their rear guards face down and also delete your opponent's Vanguard. Even just with continuous attacks, if you soul blast, you'll have that option to keep on taking care of your opponent's rear guards. And if you have the counterblast ready to go, you can delete your opponent's Vanguard, which puts them down to 0 power, meaning, just harder to guard attacks altogether as well. And that is it for the grade 3s. When I move on to the grade 2s, I run 4 Swift Deleter Gale, sorry about that, on rearguard when placed. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, this unit gets plus 4,000 until end of turn, so able to hit force grade 3s, you name it, with all the different rearguards you banish delete. You should have more rearguards most of the time than your opponent. And also on Vanguard or rear, when an attack hits a Vanguard, you can soul blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and bind it face down. If you could not bind a card, you draw a card. So if your opponent doesn't call rearguards early game, when you have Gil on your Vanguard circle, you have the option to draw a card, which is a definite bonus as well, just keeping that hand consistency. So at least you have options available to you. One thing that I like about it compared to cards like Blaster Dark and Blaster Blade, where they retire rearguard, this one at least gives you another added benefit since obviously if you don't have a rearguard to retire against. And I also run 3 Lie Down Deleter Given. Now this one, at the end of the battle that it attacked, if your opponent's Vanguard is deleted, you put a total of 6 cards from your hand and rear guards into your drop zone to stand your Vanguard, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn. Together with Force and just Great All on your Vanguard, you can hit immediate pressure based on, if you've already attacked with your rear guards, the cards in your hand, you name it. You just need that total of 6 cards from your hand and rear guards into the soul, and you stand your Vanguard for just a drive -1. So Given really does add that pressure from your rear guard that you can set up for. I only run 3 though most of the time. When you use it, you'll have the card ready in your hand to go on rear, but you still have some other grade 2s that just help more offensively with your opponent's Vanguard being deleted and giving you other options to go up against with your opponent. Some of those grade 2s being Hailing Deleter Elro. I run 2 of this card. When an attack hits a Vanguard, if Hailing Deleter Elro is on your rear guard, you counterblast 1 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it face down. So you just have a bind option on rear with this card when it hits. So it's pressure when you have Alba on your rear, and it also works very well with Alba being able to, from the drop zone with this card, when your Hailing Deleter Alba is placed on rear, you counterblast 1 and call this card to rear. So you can set up your rear guard pretty easily with this card and Alba just comboing together very well. And Alba vice versa with 2 Hailing Deleter Alba. During the battle that attacked a Vanguard, if Hailing Deleter Elro is on your rear guard, it gets +4. So the 2 just combo well together on the field. And from the drop zone with this card, when Elro is placed on rear, you Soul Blast 1 and call this card. So I like that they're also Soul Blast and Counterblasting, so you don't eat up too much of one or the other. They work well just together, eating from both of your fuel for your units, so either Soul or Counterblasts for both. And both also just being 10Ks for the Force deck with the +4, can hit for pretty good numbers alone and also when boosted. And that is it for the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s, I run 4 Ill Fate Deleter Drown. From rear, when your opponent's Vanguard is deleted, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and bind it face down. If you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, countercharge 1. So you really do, go through your counterblast pretty fast in this deck, together with Greyon and, all your other units, including Elro. But with this being able to give you those countercharges you need, and then just being able to use heal triggers, take more damage, you name it. Drown also builds up the soul, just for, something that you can do very easily in this deck, which is delete your opponent's Vanguard. And I also run 3 Embroil Deleter Jaeger. With this one, from rear, when placed, you counterblast 1 and retire 1 other rear guard and bind all of your opponent's rear guards in the same column as this unit face down. So you can take care of columns pretty easily just calling this card. I don't really like to ride this card when I don't have to, since it's a 7K, putting me at a disadvantage if my opponent rode first, if I'm not boosting. But on rear for that banish delete column, if my opponent sets it up late game, this definitely does come in handy, and you have that option of taking care of your opponent's other cards for sure. And I also run 3 Ferment Deleter Gain. At the end of the battle that it attacked a Vanguard, retire this unit and discard a card from your hand to draw a card, and choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards and bind it face down. So you can take care of units in the back row that are, boosters or just, beneficial for your opponent with this card. You obviously discard the card to draw a card, so that makes up for it. So Gain basically takes care of the grade 1 itself by retiring, but you still make up for the draw after you discard as well. And lastly, for the grade 1s, I want to run 4 Opener of the Dark Gates, but I only have 2, so I'm subbing in the 2 Perfect Guards, the Cosmo Chaplet, because I only have 2 of the Draw Perfect Guards as well for now. But 4 Opener of the Dark Gates, the only non-deleter grade 1 that I run in the deck. It's a when placed, if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, you Soul Blast 1, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, call up to 1 card with a grade less than or equal to your opponent's Vanguard from among them to rear, here and put the remaining cards looked at on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's just generic, but very, very helpful. If your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, which a lot of your deleter cards can help take care of that, and also just, early game as well. With this card, being able to call resources to use on your field when you can save your hand for just, other cards like defending against your opponent. So definitely very, very helpful to run this card in any of the Link Joker decks for standard format. And even premium, it just has so much benefits to any decks it's run in. And that's it for the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s. For our starters, Sprout Deleter Lucci, definitely very fitting starter since obviously the Deleter deck. Standard starter for the decks in standard format as well, with the Ride Upon Draw. And for the trigger lineup, I decided to go with 8 critical, so 4 Asteroid Wolf and 4 Pulse Monk of the Quaking Foot. We have no Deleter triggers. I think it would be way too broken for sure if they gave us those for premium format, but also for draw trigger. When I get the 4, full perfect guards, flowers in Vacuum Cosmo Wreath, I will run her at 4 full set and then take out the 2 perfect guards, like I said, 4 opener of Dark Gates, so to run 4 of her. And lastly, I run 4 Lady Healer of Torn World for the heal trigger. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, I've been having a lot of fun playing this deck. It's actually the first Link Joker deck that I've ever built. Even from G era, I never got into Link Joker. So definitely I would say is a cool pace of change for sure to try out this deck. And until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.